Hi, my name is Miss Weissman, and I'm going to be reading a book to you called Cheyenne again today. This story is a story about Native Americans, and it takes place in the past. While we're reading this book, I'm also going to be teaching you information that you're going to need to be doing your assignments this week for your classes. So please make sure that you're listening to that information. I'm going to do the very best I can to get you prepared for those assignments so you can be really successful this week, okay? All right, so Cheyenne again. It's an awesome book, and here we go. Cheyenne Again by Eve Bunting, illustrated by Irving Toddy. So before I read the story, I'm going to ask you just to take a second to look at that cover and the title, Cheyenne Again, and wonder possibly about what this book might be about. What could it be about? When you look at the character in the front, you might notice some characteristics about the way he dresses and what that might mean about culture. If you know information about the word Cheyenne, that might mean something to you. So take a second in your mind and think about that. And as we go through the story, we'll see if your ideas were in line with what the story actually ended up being about. All right. One day he comes, the man who counts, and says a boy aged 10, he has to go. And when he comes again, he has with him the tall policeman in his white man's clothes, the one called Taking Man. He wears the hat and spurs, the gleaming silver badge, the mark of his work. So I'm going to keep showing you the pages where the text is to help you try to see that information when you're doing your assignments as well. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to keep that on the screen. Run, run, run fast, my mother tells me. Hide. But no, my father says. Young bull must leave. Now is the white man's world. He needs to learn the white man's ways. The corn is drying out. There will be food in this place they call school. Young bull must go. So the mother obviously doesn't want her son to go and be taken by the taking man, but the father is saying that, hey, we don't have food to feed our kid, right? And the world's being taken over, and kind of this is how it is. And so they walk me to the train, the man who counts and the taking man. You will speak English, says taking man. It will be better so. He shines his shining badge. I do not want to be like him. So I'm actually going to stop on this page for a minute because I want to talk about something I'm noticing on this page. If you look at this page, there is a train, right? I want you to think about the type of train you would hop on here to go to the Max or to go to the Lloyd Center, right? You'd be getting on the Max. Does this look like a train from this time in history? So I'm going to ask you to collect that piece of information in your brain for now, and we're going to come back to that a little bit later. This is the sleeping room, they tell me at the school. So bare a place, the beds in rows, no huddle of my brothers warm around, no smell of smoke, no robes spread on the ground. I will be lonely here. So he's comparing this new situation where the white man is taking him right to like sleep to his culture where he's used to sleeping with his family, and it's a strange change for him. They take away my buckskins and my shirt, the dear moccasins my mother made. They cut my braids, give me a uniform of scratchy wool, the color of ashen sky with buttons to the neck. No more Cheyenne, they say. You've lost nothing of value. You will be like us. So In this time period, the Americans, or the white people who say they're Americans, right, and call themselves Americans, even though the Native Americans were here first, the white people are saying that they will not lose anything of value by being like them. It's almost like there's this idea of superiority, and that's a belief of that time. I learned geography, arithmetic, and writing in the English tongue, the history of their United States. I look, but in the book I cannot see the victory of Greasy Grass, where General Custer and his men attacked our brave Cheyenne people and the Sioux. It does not tell how we defeated them and counted coup and left the dead asleep beside the river. My people speak of this with so much pride. The book leaves it unsaid. Attend your lessons. Do not sit and dream, the teacher says. You want to be a dumb Indian all your life? I toss my head. So when you hear those words, do you want to be a dumb Indian all your life? That is a prejudice, derogatory way to speak about Native Americans. And this is something that's in that book, a speech of the time in a sense, like what people at that time would say, which we know is not something you would hear today. The bugle calls us to dinner and to work. There is carpentry, so we who lived in teepees can now repair the wooden buildings where we sleep and shed our tears. We drill like soldiers, and we march to keep us out of mischief, so they say. So they're being worked. They're being forced to lose their culture and identity. They've been taken from their homes and families. Even this sign here, speak English, is that something you would see nowadays? No, because that's not appropriate. It's not something we've learned more about respecting culture. And so that helps us to see that this story is not today. It must be in the past. We march in our boots that hurt our feet, so used to softness. Go to church, learn of the white man's God and of his love. We never speak Cheyenne or talk of the Great Spirit, the one who raised us in this land. The Indian in us must disappear. It must be tamed. I want you to think about that word choice, tamed. That word has a specific connotation to it. It goes along with the idea of wild animals. It's not how you usually speak of people. And it's very disrespectful to the Native American culture to be seen as animals versus a sophisticated culture, right? Like living off the land with their own beliefs and respect for nature. At night I hear the train, I hear the rain, and cry for home. One time, the time of the cold moon, I run away. So I want you to think, what time of year would it be if it was the cold moon? The snow is deep. I have no horse, no food to take with me. I only have the stone my mother gave me once, a stone that wears the scar of wind and rain, and still is strong. I hold it fast to give me strength. A blizzard roars across the plain and catches me, so I can run no more. The trackers find me there and bring me back. The school will pay $5 cash for any runaway. They lock a ball and chain around my ankle for 1 day. We must have discipline, they say. So basically, any Native American child that's leaving the school they want them back. They want them to be put back in those schools. So they offer anyone who finds a Native American who's running away from school to bring that child back to the school, and they give them a reward of $5 to do that. And remember, $5 now is a lot different than $5 then. $5 then had a lot more value. There's one teacher here that I like. Our world is changing fast, she says. We must change. I think you will be glad someday of what you've learned, though it was hard. She gives me salve. Salve is like a lotion, like a medicine you can rub on something that hurts. She gives me salve to soothe the place the chain has rubbed. Never forget that you are Indian inside. Don't let us take your memories. So while she is a white teacher, for the first time in this school, he's met someone who's respecting his culture and recognizing him and saying to him that don't forget everything. Don't forget who you are. That's important. I draw on a paper that is lined, torn from my ledger book. Across the page, 2 warriors ride on painted ponies. One wears a bonnet with full tail. His yellow leggings have a bright green fringe. His breech clout's red. The other has a shield with yellow bands. I saw them once like this against the Cheyenne sky. So she said to him, don't let us take your memories. And now we see him holding on to those memories through art and through drawings and imagination. The lines across the page are thin and straight as fencing. I snip through the wire and thrust through. And in my mind, the warriors and I ride side by side across the golden plain. Cheyenne again. And I like to make sure that everybody recognizes that this is happening in his mind, that he's comparing the lines on this paper to wires in a fence, and in his mind he's cutting them, and he's free, and he's Cheyenne again in his mind and in his memory. The book actually ends with one very crucial page, and it's called the afterword. The afterword is a chance for the author to tell you something else after the book that they think would be helpful to you to understand the story. The afterword says, in the late 1880s, there were 25 off-reservation Indian boarding schools across the United States. Indian children were often forced to attend these schools, even against the wishes of their parents. The first school to be established was Carlisle in Pennsylvania under the leadership of Captain Richard Henry Pratt. Its motto was, from savagery to civilization. So we're reviewing civilization this week. Civilization is the idea that you're cultured and that you have the sophistication of all of the things that happen when people are living together in big communities. And savagery is animalistic and unorganized. So what a cruel thing to say. From savagery into civilization. And its goal was to separate Indian children from their backgrounds and culture. Among other such boarding schools were Kimawa in Oregon, Chilocco in Oklahoma, Genoa in Nebraska, Haskell in Kansas, and they all had that same goal. Boarding schools for Native American children still exist, but they are now more sensitive to young people's needs and encourage them to treasure their skills and take pride in their heritage. So as we wrap up this story, there's going to be a couple of assignments that go along with this week. And I want to make sure that you understand what to do because my goal is to help you be successful, okay? This book is called historical fiction when we talk about its genre. It's a historical fiction story because there is real history involved, but yet the fiction is the characters and the situations. Those things could be fake. And so that's what makes it a historical fiction. Now, when an author writes a historical fiction book, there's some things the author has to make sure of to be certain it's accurate, right? So this goes over the elements of historical fiction. While we will be talking about all of these elements at some point, we're going to focus on setting today. When a historical fiction book is written, it is very important that the setting throws you back into the time period that the book is written in. And because the time period is real, it's historical, these things really did happen as far as the history of the events. The setting is crucial. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what this says. It says that the setting is considered the most important element in historical fiction. The time has to be an authentic period in history. The place is a real historical place. And so as you read this story with me here today, the setting was developed. You know a lot about the history of this time just through the things that were developed through setting. Okay, we're going to continue to focus on setting by looking at real specific things, strategies, and techniques that the author has used to develop a setting that is true to this time period of history. Because that's an obligation, that's a big responsibility the author has. They have to make sure that that piece of the historical fiction is true and real and accurate to respect that time in history. This is the assignment that you're going to find in your week 3 folder. And this assignment is a Word document attached. So this is actually a Word document. You'll open up this Word document and you'll be able to save it in your own name. And then you'll be able to type into it, continue to save it, and you'll email it to your teacher's address. All of the information I just said is also inside of the assignment. And the assignment is titled, the same thing you see on the top. It's titled, or similar, Cheyenne again, setting of historical fiction. So I'm going to go over what this is with you so you understand. I'm going to zoom in so you can see. So in this assignment, we're focusing on the 3 important things that the author has done to make this story feel real. We have the objects of the time and the inventions. So in order to make this feel like the right time in history, we're seeing those objects of the time. Like, remember that train, that steam train? That's an invention, an object of the time that helps you know you've been placed back in history. The beliefs of the time are another thing that you will find throughout the story that help you know you've been placed back in history. We also have the Cheyenne people the language and speech of the time as well. And so I put 3 examples on here for you already. So an example of objects of the time and inventions was young Bull wrote and sketched in a ledger book. So you heard that mentioned in the end. A ledger book's another name for a notebook, but that was what it was called back then. A belief of that time was that the white people believed that the Cheyenne people were losing nothing of value by leaving their culture and ways of life behind. And then one language or speech of the time was that the Cheyenne people would call, right? They would say, they would use the term the white man's world. And that's a term that you hear back in that time in history and helps you know as a reader that you're being placed back in a historical time period. Okay, so you're going to be adding 2 more examples to each category from the book Cheyenne again. So use this video, go back to the story, and find those examples. You'll type them in, and again, the information about how to submit, you'll see it on here, you'll see it in the assignment. You are basically saving this Word document and emailing it back to your teacher, and I even listed the email addresses of all your teachers as well. Okay, So I hope that this has helped you be prepared for your assignments. As usual, if you have any questions, get in touch with your teachers. And I hope you enjoyed the story. I really, really think it's a beautiful, beautiful story with an incredible message. And on that note, I wonder what you think the message of the story is. I wonder what you believe the theme is. I'm not going to tell you what I think. I'm going to leave that open for you to decide. What do you believe the author of this story is trying to have the reader walk away with? The learning, the message, the bigger picture, okay? All right, well, that's it for today, everybody. Have an awesome day.